Hello, everyone. I thought I would tell you a true ghost story that supposedly happened to my family, my ancestors to be more exact, in the 1930s, nearly 100 years ago now. And it was written about in my grandfather's book, Loxton, The Amazing Family, and which is a book my grandfather wrote in the 90s. And he actually told me this ghost story as a kid, and it scared the hell out of me. And he actually told me quite a few ghost stories. Usually, I didn't know what to believe and what not to believe, but this supposedly actually happened when my grandfather was around 6 years old in 1938. But rather than me do all the talking, my grandfather, since he wrote the story down, he'll do all the talking for you. So take a listen. The name of this story is Banshee. According to the Webster, the Banshee is an Irish fairy believed to attach herself to a house of a family. We would probably refer to them as a ghost, and they were believed to give warnings of death. As stated above, the Banshee could be a warning of death. Today, we would recognize this as a myth that came down out of the old traditions of Ireland and no longer believed. However, as recent as 1938, one Loxton family was tested in this tradition, at least some wondered. With the war clouds throughout the with the war clouds throughout the world and the depression most had experienced, it was a time of high anxiety. On a fall day in 1938, David Foster and Elizabeth Loxton family had been working in the fields all day, cutting and shocking corn. They had come into the house just before darkness set in when they heard a screaming sound from the far left inside of the fields they had just left. At first, it was believed that a child may have been lost or hurt. It was then observed that the scream was moving from left to right, much too swift for a human being. One young man said he could take care of it with his corn knife when Grandma Elizabeth told him to hush up such talk. Then the object called out in a wailing sound, "I want Mama," which was repeated several times. Grandma, still thinking it might be a child, called out loudly, "Honey, I'm your Mama." The object replied, "No, I want my Mama." Then a final reply, "I'm gone." Whatever this was had traveled a distance over 1/2 mile in much less time possible for a human being. 10 to 15 people had heard the cry, some still living today. The occurrence was talked about for days with no one coming to a logical conclusion. My mother and father, Dewey and Sylvia Loxton, were there working that day and heard the scream. Mom rushed home to check up on the safety of us children and found all okay. A few days after this incident, my uncle, Edward P. Loxton, 18 years of age, Grandpa's youngest son and a favorite in the family, had an automobile accident, breaking his back. The doctors at the time were limited on what they could do, and he was placed in bed at home to be cared for until he died November 9th, 1938. As his spinal column deteriorated, he suffered excruciating pain and called for his mama quite often. On one occasion, while my mother was caring for him, he called for his mama, and when my mother offered help, he replied, "No, I want my mama." Soon after his death, Grandpa Voss became ill and died, December 1938. We mentioned that Edward was a favorite. At the tender age of 18, he had developed a talent for boxing that many said had the potential to go far in that field. One boxer, Kentucky former welterweight champion James Hale, a childhood friend, said he would have been the heavyweight champion of the world. What was this object that screamed that evening? Was it a banshee of the old Irish tradition, giving a warning of death? At least some believed it to be.